The stars themselves seemed to dim when Vextar moved through space. Captain Lee Minho had heard the stories like everyone else in the galaxy. Children would hide under their beds when their parents spoke the name in whispers. Entire civilizations had changed their trade routes just to avoid the empty systems where the creature had passed. Minho stood on the bridge of his ship, the Harmony, watching the endless darkness outside. His coffee had gone cold an hour ago, but he barely noticed. The emergency message from the Galactic Council played over and over in his mind. 3 simple words that made his blood run cold. Vextar is coming. Captain, called Dr. Park Ji-won from her station near the science console. Her voice was steady, but Minho could hear the worry underneath. I've been reading the Council's files on this thing. The numbers don't make sense. Minho turned to face his chief scientist. Ji-won was brilliant, the kind of person who could solve problems that stumped entire research teams. If she said something didn't make sense, it was worth listening to. What kind of numbers? He asked. Ji-won pulled up a holographic display that filled the air between them. Star systems appeared as tiny lights, connected by glowing lines that showed shipping routes and communication networks. But scattered throughout the map were dark spots, places where the lights had gone out forever. 10 million confirmed kills over 30 years, Ji-won said, pointing to each dark spot in turn. 47 star systems left completely empty. No survivors, no witnesses, no trace of what happened except the bodies. Engineer Kim Tae-ho looked up from his workstation near the back of the bridge. My grandfather fought in the Outer Rim Wars. He told me stories about weapons that could crack planets in half. But even those weapons left something behind. Debris, radiation, something. That's just it, Ji-won continued. Vextar doesn't destroy planets or stations. It kills people, one by one. Sometimes it takes weeks to clear an entire colony. The buildings are left standing. The power stays on. But every living thing is dead. Minho felt a chill run down his spine. He had commanded ships through pirate raids and natural disasters. But this was different. Pirates wanted money or supplies. Natural disasters were random, without thought or purpose. But Vextar was something else entirely. Show me the pattern, he said. Ji-won manipulated the display, highlighting the creature's movements over the past 3 decades. Red lines connected each attack, showing Vextar's path through the galaxy like drops of blood across a star chart. It's not random, she said quietly. Look at the timing. Look at the targets. Minho studied the display carefully. At first, it did seem random. Mining colonies, research stations, trading posts, even a few military bases. But as he looked closer, he began to see what Ji-won had discovered. It's hunting specific people, he realized. That's what I think too. Every attack follows the same pattern. Vextar arrives at a system, scans all the settlements, then goes directly to wherever its target is hiding. It kills that person first, then eliminates everyone else who was there. No exceptions. From across the bridge, their communications officer raised her hand. Lieutenant Song Ariam was young, barely out of the academy, but she had sharp eyes and sharper instincts. Captain, we're getting another transmission from the Council. Priority 1. Put it through. The main screen flickered to life, showing the worried face of Counselor Vrex, a tall alien with blue skin and 4 eyes. His species was known for being calm under pressure, but today he looked terrified. Captain Lee, Vrex began without preamble. Vextar has been spotted in the Kepler system. Long-range sensors confirm it's heading directly for Kepler 442b. Minho's heart sank. Kepler 442b was a peaceful mining colony, home to 50,000 settlers. Most of them were families, people who had come to the Outer Rim looking for a better life. They had no military defenses, no way to fight something like Vextar. How long do we have? Minho asked. Our calculations show it will reach the colony in 6 days. We've sent evacuation ships, but they won't arrive for at least 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Minho closed his eyes and tried to think. Even if they could, somehow delay Vextar, how do you fight something that had never been defeated? Every military force that had tried to stop the creature had been destroyed. Entire battle fleets had been reduced to floating scrap metal. What about the colonists? Asked Arim. Can't they evacuate on their own ships? Counselor Vrex shook his forehead sadly. Kepler 442b is a mining colony. They have cargo haulers and shuttles, but nothing capable of interstellar travel with 50,000 people. Even if they had, the ships, where would they go? Vextar has never left survivors. The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. 50,000 people were going to die, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. There is one more thing, Vrex continued. The Council has decided to issue a general warning to all ships in the sector. Any vessel that attempts to interfere with Vextar will be considered lost. We cannot risk more lives in a hopeless fight. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in darkness except for the glow of their instruments. Outside, the stars continued, their ancient dance indifferent to the tragedy that was about to unfold. Minho looked around at his crew. These were good people, scientists and explorers who had signed up to study new worlds and make contact with alien civilizations. They had never expected to face something like this. "Captain," Taiho said quietly, "the Harmony isn't a warship. We have mining lasers and defensive shields, but nothing that could hurt something like Vextar. Maybe we should listen to the Council." 50,000 people, Ariam whispered. Jiwan was still staring at her display, watching the red lines that marked Vextar's path of destruction. There has to be something we're missing, something that explains why it kills the way it does. "What do you mean?" Minho asked. "Look at this pattern again. Vextar could destroy entire planets if it wanted to. It has the power. But it doesn't. It lands on each world and hunts down every person individually. That takes time, effort. Why would something so powerful choose the hard way?" Minho studied the pattern again, trying to see what Jiwan saw. The creature's path seemed almost methodical, like it was following a list of names rather than choosing targets at random. "Maybe it enjoys the hunt," Taiho suggested. "No," Jiwan shook her head. "Predators that hunt for pleasure are sloppy. They make mistakes. Vextar has never made a mistake. In 30 years, it has never failed to kill its target." "Then what drives it?" Minho asked. Jiwan was quiet for a long moment, studying the data with the intensity that made her such a brilliant scientist. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "What if it's not hunting for pleasure? What if it's hunting for a reason?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Outside their ship, the darkness between the stars seemed to grow deeper, as if something vast and terrible was moving through the void, coming closer with each passing moment. In 6 days, they would have their answer. 3 days. That was how much time they had lost to space storms and navigation errors. Captain Lee Minho stood at the viewport of the Harmony, watching Kepler 442b grow larger on the screen. The planet looked peaceful from orbit, its surface covered in green forests and blue oceans. Small lights marked the location of mining settlements scattered across 2 continents. But something was wrong. The emergency channels should have been full of chatter from evacuation efforts. Instead, there was only silence. "Captain," Lieutenant Song Ariam called from her station, "I'm picking up scattered transmissions from the surface. Most of the outer settlements have gone dark." Minho felt his stomach drop. "How many?" 17 settlements reported in this morning. Now only 4 are responding to our calls. "Dr. Park." Jiwon looked up from her scanner readings, her face pale. "Captain, I'm detecting massive energy signatures on the surface. Whatever Vexatar is, it's already down there." Engineer Kim Taiho pulled up the planet's communication grid on his screen. Red dots marked the settlements that had stopped transmitting. They formed a rough circle around the main colony, like a predator slowly closing in on its prey. "It's not attacking randomly," Jiwan observed. "Look at the pattern. It started with the furthest settlements and it's working its way toward the population center." Minho studied the display. She was right. Vextar was being methodical, almost careful. A creature with enough power to destroy planets should have just wiped out everything at once. Instead, it was taking its time. "Captain," Ariam said, her voice tight with worry. "I'm getting a transmission from the main colony. They're requesting immediate assistance." "Put it through." The screen flickered to life, showing a middle-aged woman in a mining supervisor's uniform. Her name tag read, Director Kim Soo-jin. Behind her, Minho could see people running back and forth carrying supplies and helping children. "This is Director Kim on Kepler 442b, she said quickly. "We need help. Something is killing people in the outer settlements. We've lost contact with most of our mining teams. Director Kim, this is Captain Lee Minho of the Harmony. We know about the threat. Evacuation ships are coming, but they won't arrive for another week." The woman's face went white. "A week? Captain, we have 50,000 people here, whatever. This thing it's killed thousands already. The outer settlements are completely empty. Can you defend yourselves?" Minho asked, though he already knew the answer. "We're miners, not soldiers. We have some security guards and hunting rifles, but nothing that could stop what we're seeing on the scanner reports." Ji-won leaned closer to her instruments. "Captain, I'm getting detailed scans of the creature now. You need to see this." She transferred her readings to the main screen. What they saw made everyone on the bridge step back in shock. Vexitar was enormous. It stood 3 stories tall, its body a constantly shifting mass of dark metal and organic tissue. Multiple arms extended from its torso, each one ending in weapons that could cut through reinforced steel like paper. Its legs were thick as tree, trunks designed to carry massive weight across any terrain. But it was the head that made Minho's blood run cold. Instead of a single face, Vexitar had multiple optical sensors arranged around a central core. Each sensor moved independently, scanning in different directions at once. Nothing could hide from those eyes. "Dear God," Taiho whispered. "How do you fight something like that?" "You don't," Ariam said quietly. "Every military report says the same thing. Vexitar adapts to whatever weapons are used against it. Lasers, missiles, plasma cannons. Nothing works twice." Director Kim's voice crackled through the speakers. "Captain, are you still there? We need to know what to do." Minho forced himself to focus on the woman's frightened face. "Director, gather everyone in the main colony. Lock down all the outer settlements. Don't send anyone to investigate what happened to the missing teams. What about the people in the mines? We have workers scattered across the continent. Recall them all. Everyone needs to be in the main settlement within the next few hours. But Captain, some of those teams are days away from the main colony." Minho closed his eyes. He knew what he was asking her to do. Some of those mining teams would never make it back in time. But if they stayed scattered, Vexitar would hunt them down one by one. "Do your best," he said finally. "We're going to try to buy you more time." After the transmission ended, the bridge fell silent. Everyone understood what Minho had just promised. The Harmony would somehow have to delay or distract the most dangerous creature in the galaxy. "Captain," Ji-won said carefully, "what exactly are we going to do? Our mining lasers couldn't scratch that thing's armor." "I don't know yet," Minho admitted. "But we can't just watch 50,000 people die." Taiho pulled up the Harmony's weapon systems on his screen. They had defensive shields, mining equipment, and some basic tools for clearing space debris. Nothing that would qualify as a real weapon. "Maybe we could ram it," he suggested without much hope. "That would just get us killed without helping anyone," Ariam pointed out. Ji-won was studying her scanner readings again, her scientific mind working on the problem. "Captain, I'm seeing something strange in the creature's energy patterns." "What kind of strange?" "It's hard to explain. Most of its energy is focused on its weapons and movement systems. But there's another pattern underneath, something that looks almost like neural activity." "You mean it's thinking?" "More than that. These readings look like the brain patterns of someone in extreme distress. The neural activity is chaotic, almost painful to look at." Minho frowned. "Are you saying this thing is suffering?" "I don't know. But look at this." Ji-won enhanced the display, showing wave patterns that rose and fell like a heartbeat. These spikes correspond with each attack. When Vexitar kills someone, its neural activity becomes more chaotic, not less. What does that mean? I'm not sure. But most predators show satisfaction or calm after a successful hunt. Vexitar seems to become more agitated. Before anyone could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Ariam's hands flew over her controls, trying to locate the source of the alert. Captain, something's happening on the surface. I'm reading massive energy discharges from the main colony's location. The main screen switched to a view of the planet's surface. Even from orbit, they could see flashes of light coming from the direction of the mining settlement. Explosions lit up the night sky like deadly fireworks. Director Kim, please respond, Ariam called into her communicator. Static filled the channel. The colony's shields are failing, Taiho reported. I'm reading structural damage to multiple buildings. Minho watched the lights flickering on the planet's surface and knew they were running out of time. Vexitar had reached the main colony 3 days ahead of schedule. The evacuation ships were still a week away. 50,000 people were trapped on the surface with the galaxy's most dangerous killer. And the only thing standing between them and death was a research ship with mining lasers and a crew of scientists. Set course for the planet, Minho ordered. We're going down there. Captain, Jiwan said quietly. We don't have a plan. Then we'll figure one out on the way down, Minho replied, strapping himself into the captain's chair. Taiho, prepare the shuttle bay. Ariam, keep trying to reach the colony. Jiwan, I want everything you can tell me about that creature's neural patterns. As the Harmony began its descent toward the planet, Minho stared at the flashing lights below and wondered if he was leading his crew to their deaths. But he couldn't abandon 50,000 innocent people, not when there was still hope, however small. In a few hours, they would come face to face with Vexitar, and then they would learn if human courage could stand against the terror of the void. The shuttle bay doors of the Harmony opened to reveal a planet in chaos. Captain Lee Minho piloted their small craft through smoke and debris, trying to find a safe place to land near the main colony. Below them, fires burned across the settlement, like scattered stars against the darkness. Captain, I'm reading life signs. Dr. Park Jiwan reported from her scanner. About 30,000 people are still alive, mostly gathered in the central district. What happened to the other 20,000? Asked Engineer Kim Taeho from the co-pilot seat. I don't want to think about it, Lieutenant Song Ariam whispered from behind them. Minho guided the shuttle toward a landing pad near the colony's main administrative building. As they descended, he could see people running through the streets, carrying whatever belongings they could manage. Parents held children close while others helped elderly colonists move to safer areas. But there was something else moving through the streets. Something much larger. There, Jiwan pointed through the front window. 2 blocks east of the landing pad. Vexitar stood in the middle of what had once been a busy marketplace. The creature was even more terrifying in person than it had appeared on their scanners. Its dark metal skin reflected the firelight and its multiple optical sensors swept back and forth like searchlights. But it wasn't moving. It stood perfectly still, as if it were waiting for something. Why isn't it attacking? Taeho asked. There are people all around it. Jiwan studied her readings carefully. The neural patterns are different now, less chaotic. It's not in hunting mode. Then what is it doing? Before anyone could answer, Minho spotted a small group of people huddled behind an overturned vehicle just 50 meters from where Vexitar stood. Among them was a woman in a mining supervisor's uniform. That's Director Kim, he realized. Set us down quickly. The shuttle touched down with a soft thud. Minho was already reaching for his sidearm when Jiwan grabbed his wrist. Captain, wait. I've been analyzing the creature's behavior patterns during our approach. I think I know why it's not attacking. Tell me quickly. Look at who it killed in the outer settlements. I cross-referenced the victim list with colony personnel records. Jiwan pulled up her data on a portable screen. Every single person who died had one thing in common. What? They all worked on biological research projects before coming to Kepler 442b. Genetic modification, biological weapons development, artificial organism creation. Every one of them. Minho felt a chill run down his spine. Are you saying Vexitar is hunting specific people? More than that. I think it's hunting people who were involved in creating things like itself. Taiho looked confused. But why? And why kill everyone else in those settlements? Maybe it can't help itself, Ariam suggested quietly. Maybe once it starts killing, it can't stop until everyone nearby is dead. Jiwan shook her head. No, that doesn't match the neural patterns. When it kills the primary targets, the brain activity spikes with what looks like satisfaction, but when it kills the others, the patterns show distress. You're saying it doesn't want to kill the innocent people? I think it has to. Some kind of programming or conditioning that forces it to eliminate all witnesses. Minho thought about this as he watched Vexitar through the window. The creature had turned its sensors toward their shuttle but hadn't approached. It seemed to be studying them, trying to decide if they were a threat. "Captain," Ariam said urgently, "I'm getting a transmission from Director Kim. She's trying to reach us on short-range radio." "Put her through." The director's voice came through full of static and fear. "Captain Lee, can you hear me? We're trapped near the marketplace. That thing has been standing there for over an hour." "We can see you, Director. Why isn't it attacking?" "Don't know. It killed Dr. Han Jae-woo about 2 hours ago. He was our head of biological research. Since then, it's just been standing there, like it's waiting for something." Ji-won grabbed the radio. "Director Kim, this is Dr. Park. Are there any other researchers in your group? Anyone who worked on biological projects?" "No, Dr. Han was the only one." "Why do you ask?" "Because I think that's what it was looking for." There was a long pause before Director Kim responded. "Are you saying this thing came here just to kill one person?" "That's exactly what I'm saying. And now that it's completed its primary mission, it doesn't know what to do next." Minho studied the creature through the window. If Ji-won was right, then Vextar was essentially a biological weapon with a very specific purpose. But what happened when that purpose was fulfilled? "We need to get those people out of there," he decided. "Taiho, what's our best approach?" "The shuttle's too small to evacuate 30,000 people. Even if we could, where would we take them?" "I'm not talking about everyone, just the group trapped near Vextar." "Captain," Ji-won said carefully, "if my theory is correct, then approaching that creature might trigger its defensive protocols. It might see us as a threat to its mission." "Then what do you suggest?" Ji-won was quiet for a moment, studying her. Scanner readings. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. "I think we need to try communicating with it." "Communicate with that thing?" Taiho looked at her like she had lost her mind. "It's killed 10 million people. But not randomly. Every kill serves a purpose. That suggests intelligence, maybe even reasoning ability." Ariam pulled up the colony's communication systems on her portable unit. "I can try broadcasting on multiple frequencies. But what would we say to something like that?" "The truth," Minho decided. "We tell it that its mission is complete and ask it to leave peacefully. And if it decides we're a threat?" Minho looked around at his crew. These people had trusted him to keep them safe, and now he was asking them to approach the most dangerous creature in the galaxy. "Then we'll deal with that when it happens. But we can't just abandon those people." He opened the shuttle's communication system and began broadcasting on all frequencies. "Vextar, this is Captain Lee Minho of the human vessel Harmony. We know you came here to find Dr. Han Jae-woo. Your mission is complete. We're asking you to leave this colony peacefully." For several long minutes there was no response. Then slowly, Vextar turned all of its optical sensors toward their shuttle. When it spoke, its voice was like grinding metal mixed with electronic static. "Humans, you know my purpose." "Yes. You hunt those who create biological weapons. Dr. Han is dead. Your work here is finished. My work is never finished. There are always more. But not here. Not among these colonists. They're just miners and farmers." Vextar's massive head tilted slightly as if considering this. "Innocent ones die to protect the mission. This is necessary." "No," Minho said firmly. "It's not necessary. You've already accomplished what you came here to do. You do not understand. I am programmed to eliminate all witnesses." "Then change your programming." The creature made a sound that might have been laughter if it had come from anything human. "I cannot change what I am. You can choose what you do next." For the first time since they had started talking, Vexitar fell silent. Its optical sensors continued to focus on their shuttle, but something in its posture had changed. The aggressive stance had relaxed slightly. "I have been choosing for 30 years, it finally said. Always the same choice. Always the same result. Then, choose differently this time. Minho waited, holding his breath as he watched the massive creature consider his words. Around the marketplace, 30,000 people waited to learn if they would live or die based on the decision of the galaxy's most feared killer. Everything depended on whether a weapon designed for death could choose mercy instead. The silence stretched between Captain Lee Minho and Vextar like a bridge made of hope and fear. Through the shuttle's window, Minho could see the massive creature standing motionless in the marketplace, its optical sensors still focused on their small craft. "Captain," Dr. Park Ji-won whispered, "its neural patterns are changing. Something is happening inside its mind." "Good change or bad change?" asked Engineer Kim Tai-ho nervously. "I don't know. The patterns are unlike anything I've seen before." Lieutenant Song Aria monitored the colony's emergency channels from her seat behind them. "The colonists are watching us. Director Kim says people are gathering at windows and doorways. They want to know what's happening." Minho kept his eyes on Vextar. The creature hadn't moved for several minutes, but he could sense something shifting in the air around them. The very atmosphere seemed to hold its breath. Then Vextar spoke again. Its voice carried a different tone now, less mechanical and more uncertain. "Choose differently. No one has ever said those words to me before." "Because no one ever tried to understand you," Minho replied. "They only saw you as a monster to be, feared or destroyed. I am a monster. I was made to be one." "Who made you?" For a long moment, Vextar remained silent. When it finally answered, there was something that might have been pain in its electronic voice. "The makers are gone. I killed them first." "Why?" "Because they created me to suffer. Every death I cause brings agony. Every life I take makes the pain worse. But I cannot stop. The programming will not let me stop." Ji-won leaned closer to her. Scanner. Her scientific mind working to understand what she was hearing. "Captain, the neural patterns are showing massive internal conflict. It's like watching two different minds fighting inside the same body." "One mind wants to kill," Minho guessed. "What does the other mind want?" "To rest," Vextar answered, apparently able to hear their conversation through the shuttle's communication system. "To sleep. To forget the faces of those I have killed." "Then why don't you rest?" "Because there are always more. More scientists. More researchers. More people who would create weapons like me. The galaxy must be cleansed of those who make instruments of suffering." Minho felt his heart break a little at the creature's words. Here was a being created for the sole purpose of killing, programmed to feel pain with every death it caused, but unable to stop because of its own nature. "What if I told you that most of the people you're hunting are already dead?" he said quietly. "What do you mean?" "The biological weapons programs ended decades ago. Most of the researchers involved have died of old age or been killed by their own creations. You're hunting ghosts, Vextar. The war that created you is over." The creature's optical sensors suddenly focused more intensely on the shuttle. "You lie." "No. Check your own records. How many new targets have you found in the past 5 years? How many people on your list are still alive?" Vextar fell silent again. Minho could almost sense the creature searching through its memory banks, cross-referencing names and dates. 17, it finally said. "Only 17 targets remain active." "Out of how many original targets?" 2,346. The math was simple and heartbreaking. Vextar had spent 30 years killing people to stop a war that had essentially ended on its own. "The people you're killing now," Minho continued gently, "they're not weapons makers. They're teachers, farmers, miners, people trying to build something instead of destroy something. But they know about biological research. They might continue the work, or they might use their knowledge to heal people instead of hurting them. You won't know unless you give them the chance." Tai-ho shifted nervously in his seat. "Captain, are we really trying to convince a mass murderer to change its mind?" "We're trying to show a tortured soul that there's another way," Minho replied. Without taking his eyes off Vextar, the creature began to move, but not toward them. Instead, it walked slowly toward the group of colonists hiding behind the overturned vehicle. Director Kim and her people pressed themselves lower, trying to become invisible. "What is it doing?" Ariam asked. Ji-won checked her readings. "The neural patterns are stabilizing. I think it's trying to make a decision." Vextar stopped just a few meters from the hiding colonists. One of its weapon arms extended, the blade gleaming in the firelight. Director Kim closed her eyes and held her daughter closer, but the killing blow never came. Instead, Vextar knelt down until it was closer to human height. When it spoke, its voice was directed at the colonists, but loud enough for everyone to hear. "You are afraid of me." Director Kim opened her eyes and looked at the massive creature. "Yes," she whispered. "I am afraid too." "What are you afraid of?" "Of what I have become, of what I might continue to become." One of the colonists, a young man barely out of his teens, stepped out from behind the vehicle. His hands were shaking, but his voice was steady. "My name is Park Jinwoo. I study biology at the colony school. Does that mean you have to kill me?" Vextar's optical sensors focused on the young man. "My programming says yes." "What does your heart say?" "I do not have a heart. Everyone has a heart. Even you." The creature was quiet for a long time, its sensors studying the young man's face. When it finally spoke, its voice was softer than before. "My heart says that you are young, that you might do good things with your knowledge, that killing you would not make the galaxy safer. Then listen to your heart instead of your programming. It is not that simple." "It is exactly that simple." Minho watched this exchange with growing amazement. A teenager with no weapons and no training was doing what entire military fleets had failed to do. He was reaching the part of Vextar that was still capable of choice. "You said the war is over," Vextar said, turning its attention back to the shuttle. "What am I supposed to do now?" "Whatever you want," Minho replied. "For the first time in your existence, you can choose your own purpose. I only know how to kill. Then learn how to do something else." Who would teach a monster? Someone who sees that you're not really a monster at all. You're a victim, a prisoner in your own body, forced to do things you hate. Vextar stood up slowly, its massive form casting long shadows across the marketplace. "If I choose to stop killing, what happens to the programming?" "Fight it, override it. You're stronger than the people who made you." "How do you know?" "Because if you weren't, you would have killed everyone here already. Instead, you're talking to us. You're questioning your orders. That takes strength." The creature looked around at all the people watching from doorways and windows. Thousands of faces stared back at it, no longer hiding in terror but waiting to see what choice it would make. "I am tired," Vextar said finally. "So very tired of carrying death wherever I go." "Then put it down," Minho said simply. "Walk away. Choose life instead of death. And if the programming tries to force me back, then we'll help you fight it." Vexitar's optical sensors swept across the crowd one more time, then focused on the shuttle where Minho waited. "We?" it asked. "You don't have to be alone anymore." For the first time in 30 years, the galaxy's most feared killer stood at a crossroads with the power to choose its own destiny. Captain Lee Minho stepped out of the shuttle into the smoky air of the marketplace. The metal landing ramp clanged under his boots as he walked down onto the planet's surface. Behind him, he could hear Dr. Park Ji-won, Engineer Kim Tae-ho, and Lieutenant Song Ariam following, but his eyes were focused on only one thing. Vexitar stood 20 meters away, its massive form towering over the scattered debris of the marketplace. The creature's multiple optical sensors tracked Minho's movement, but its weapon arms remained retracted. For the first time since anyone could remember, the galaxy's most feared killer was not in attack position. "Captain," Ji-won whispered through her portable communicator. "Its neural patterns are completely different now. The chaos is gone. It's thinking clearly for the first time since we started monitoring it." Minho walked slowly toward Vextar, his hands visible and empty. Around, the marketplace colonists watched from doorways and windows. Director Kim and her group stood up from behind their overturned vehicle. no longer hiding but not yet brave enough to approach. "You came down here," Vextar observed, its electronic voice carrying a note of surprise. "Why would you leave the safety of your ship?" "Because you needed to see that I meant what I said. You don't have to be alone anymore. I have been alone for 30 years. I do not remember what it feels like to have companions." Minho stopped just out of reach of the creature's massive arms. Up close, Vextar was even more imposing than it had seemed from the shuttle. But now, instead of seeing a monster, Minho saw something else. Pain, weariness, a deep sadness that seemed to radiate from the creature's very core. "Tell me about the loneliness," Minho said softly. Vextar's optical sensors dimmed slightly. "When I was first activated, my makers told me I was perfect, a weapon without conscience, without doubt. But they were wrong. I felt everything. Every death I caused created new memories, new faces that would never leave my mind." "How many faces do you remember?" "All of them. 10,237,418. I remember every name, every last word, every expression of fear or confusion or anger." The weight of that number hit Minho like a physical blow. 10 million faces, all trapped forever in the memory of a creature that never wanted to kill them in the first place. "That's why you're tired," he realized. "Yes. Each death makes me stronger physically, but weaker inside. I have been dying a little bit with every person I killed." Young Park Jinwoo stepped forward from the group of colonists. "Then why did you keep going?" "Because stopping meant facing the pain. Continuing meant I could focus on the mission and ignore the voices in my head." "What voices?" asked Ariam from near the shuttle. "The voices of everyone I killed. They never stop talking. They ask me why. They tell me about their families, their dreams, their plans for the future. They forgive me, and that makes it worse." Minho felt tears starting in his eyes. Here was a being created to be a perfect killer, but instead it had become a perfect victim. Every death it caused had hurt it more than any weapon ever could. "You don't have to listen to those voices anymore," he said. "How do I make them stop?" "You don't. You learn to live with them. You honor their memory by choosing to do better." Vexitar was quiet for a long moment. When it spoke again, its voice was barely above a whisper. "I do not know how to do better. I only know destruction." "Then we'll teach you." The creature's massive head tilted. "You would do that? Knowing what I am? Knowing what I have done?" "I know what you were forced to do. That's different from what you chose to do." "How is it different?" Minho thought about how to explain something that seemed so obvious to him but so foreign to a creature programmed for killing. "Choice is what makes us who we are. For 30 years you didn't have real choices. Now you do. And if I choose wrong, then you learn from the mistake and choose better next time. That's what everyone does." Vextar looked around at all the faces watching from the marketplace. Director Kim had moved closer, along with several other colonists. Even children were peering out from behind their parents, no longer completely terrified of the massive creature. "They are not running away," Vextar observed. "Because they can see what I see," Minho said. "A being in pain who wants to do better." "What do you see when you look at me?" Minho stepped closer, now within reach of Vextar's retracted weapons. "I see someone who has been carrying a terrible burden for too long, someone who needs help. I am not someone. I am something. A weapon. A tool. No. You think, you feel, you remember. You make choices. That makes you someone, not something." Vextar's optical sensors focused intently on Minho's face. "In all my years of existence, no one has ever called me someone before. Then it's about time someone did." The silence that followed was different from the tense quiet of their earlier conversation. This silence felt peaceful, like the moment after a storm passes and the world begins to heal. "Captain," Vextar said finally, "I do not know how to accept help. I do not know how to be anything other than what I was made to be." "That's okay. We'll figure it out together." And then Minho did something that would be remembered throughout the galaxy for generations to come. He stepped forward and placed both hands on Vextar's lower torso, the only part of the massive creature he could reach. "You're not alone anymore," he said simply. Vextar's entire body shuddered. Neural pathways that had been locked in patterns of violence and pain for 30 years suddenly found new connections. The constant noise of 10 million voices in its memory didn't disappear, but for the first time, they were joined by something else. Hope. "I can feel it," Vextar whispered, its voice filled with wonder. "The programming is still there, but it feels distant now, like an echo instead of a command." "That's your choice overriding your conditioning," Jiwan said, studying her scanner readings with amazement. "You're rewriting your own neural patterns." Vextar looked down at Minho, who still had his hands pressed against the creature's armored skin. "How long since someone touched me without fear?" "I don't know. How long has it been?" "Never. In 30 years of existence, you are the first being to touch me as a friend instead of trying to hurt me." "And how does it feel?" "Like remembering something I never knew I had lost." Director Kim approached cautiously, her daughter hiding behind her. "What happens now?" she asked. Vextar straightened to its full height, but its posture was different. Now, less threatening, more thoughtful. "Now I learn what it means to choose. Captain Lee has shown me that I can be more than my programming." "Where will you go?" asked Ariam. "I do not know. For 30 years I followed a list of targets. Now I must decide what to do with my freedom." "You could help people," suggested young Jinwoo. "Use your strength to protect instead of destroy." "How does one learn to protect?" "The same way you learned everything else," Minho said. "One choice at a time." Vextar began walking toward the edge of the marketplace, moving slowly, so as not to frighten anyone. As it passed the group of colonists, several children waved shyly. To everyone's surprise, one of Vextar's smaller appendages waved back. "Captain Lee," the creature called back as it reached the settlement's border. "Thank you for showing me that monsters can choose to become something else." "You were never a monster," Minho replied. "You were just hurt." Vextar paused at the edge of the light from the settlement. "Perhaps, but I will spend the rest of my existence trying to heal that hurt by helping others heal theirs." And with that, the galaxy's most feared killer walked away into the darkness, leaving behind only the memory of an embrace that had changed everything. Word of what happened on Kepler 442b spread across the galaxy faster than any starship could travel. The story of a human captain who saw past 30 years of programmed violence to find the wounded soul beneath became legend. 6 months later, reports began filtering in from the Outer Rim territories. A massive figure was helping disaster relief, efforts protecting refugee convoys and standing guard over planets threatened by pirates and raiders. The creature that had once brought only death now brought hope wherever it went. And in a small office aboard the Harmony, Captain Lee Minho kept a communication channel open on a frequency that only he and one other being in the galaxy knew about. Sometimes when the loneliness became too much, Vextar would send a simple message. "Thank you for teaching me that I had a choice." Minho would always respond the same way. "Thank you for choosing to be better." The embrace had lasted only a few seconds, but its effects would ripple through the galaxy for generations. It proved that sometimes the most dangerous beings are simply the most wounded, and that understanding can triumph where violence fails. Most importantly, it showed that everyone, no matter how lost they might seem, deserves a chance at redemption. The galaxy learned that day that monsters are not born, they are made. And if they can be made, they can also be unmade, one choice at a time.